So, with the advent of one of the best and gayest Dungeons and Dragons games ever made, igniting interest in the franchise like never before, I felt it was my duty as a former weird kid in your middle school to inform you that there are some amazing Dungeons and Dragons games from before the helminthophobia causing craze of Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I'm not talking about Baldur's Gate 1 or 2, nor am I talking about Neverwinter Nights. No, we're talking about a game that represents the best $10 I have ever spent in the Walmart discount game section, Troika's Temple of Elemental Evil. The Temple of Elemental Evil is one of those stories that has been with Dungeons and Dragons in some way throughout almost every edition. It's based around another module written by Gary Gygax and published by TSR in 1979 called The Village Hommlet. Now, I know that when creating a vast fantasy world with hundreds of cities, one would run their well of creative names quite dry. But I always felt like having a village named Hommlet is a bit like having a hamlet named Volage. It's not really an issue, but I can imagine there was at some point during the town's growth where it was referred to as the Hamlet Hommlet. Before we can really get into the meat of the game and some of the gameplay and the story and all that, we have to talk about modules and module codes. So module codes were little indicators paired with each module that denoted which larger story that one was a part of. There are many codes for different adventures from 1978 all the way to about 1994, but the code we are focused on for this adventure is T.
The letter T.
The village Hommlet was given the code T1. And as numbered lists tend to do, it was believed that the upcoming expansion would bear the title T2. But after the release of T1 and while working on T2, Gary got distracted a lot. You see, Gary always had a lot of plates spinning, and he had a rather large plate suspended precariously above his head called the Lost Caverns of Sojcanth that was taking up most of his attention at this time. So what do you do when you have to keep pausing your work on one project to focus on another? That's right. You skip that project number. Instead of just putting T2 on hold, Gygax skipped it. He skipped T3 as well, and T4 was left out in the rain wondering what it had done to deserve such treatment from Daddy Gygax. But from the ashes of these forgotten numbers rose a beast so mighty that it could not be contained within a single digit. Behold, T1 through 4. So instead of just releasing the Temple of Elemental Evil as T2 and ignoring the false starts on the project before, in 1985, a full 6 years after the first module, Gygax and TSR released not a companion module, but a combination of T1 and what would have been T2, but with a little numeric reminder of how many times he almost finished it. It feels a little insulting, but weirdly honest, so I'm not really sure how I feel about it. Now, this book was huge. It was 128 pages long with a 16-page map booklet, and it took characters from levels 1 through 8. And it was beloved. It was ranked as the fourth greatest adventure by Eric Mona and James Jacobs in the 2004 issue of Dungeon Design Panel called The 30 Greatest D&D Adventures of All Time. With the Temple of Elemental Evil being such a staple in the early days of D&D, it's no surprise that it saw many reprints and reimaginings, the largest of which came just 1 year later when the Temple of Elemental Evil was combined with modules A1 through 4, Scourge of the Slave Lords, as a super module. As if that wasn't enough, that super module was combined with another super module that combined G1 through 3 against the Giants, D1 through 3, which was just called Drow, all culminating with Q1, Queen of the Demon Web Pits, which saw the characters fight against the many-legged mommy herself, Lolth. The Temple of Elemental Evil was then adapted into a novel in 2001, which I haven't read, but I feel like I should. And it got a sequel for 3rd edition in 2001 called Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil, and then another remake for 4th edition. Nothing for 5th edition, though, so I guess the 4th best adventure of all time only gets reprinted up to 4th edition. So, with all that out of the way, we move now to 2003. The Iraq War had just started, the Columbia spaceship disaster had just happened, Finding Nemo graced us with the hottest fish ever, Nintendo released one of my favorite handheld consoles ever, and Adrian Brody kissed Halle Berry? I don't know, that's just on the list of notable events in 2003 that I Googled.
So I'm editing, and I didn't know what the Adrian Brody Halle Berry thing was when I put it down. Apparently he just full-on just smooched her at the Oscars without her consent, so that is pretty noteworthy. Don't kiss people without asking them first. That's weird.
Okay. Troika Games, the developer known for such gems as Arcanum of Steamworks and Magic Obscura.
And that's Magic with a CK.
And later Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, released the Temple of Elemental Evil for PC, published by Atari. The game itself reviewed fine, gaining a 71 out of 100 from Metacritic. It was criticized for bugs and stability issues, but also lauded as one of the most faithful implementations of the 3.5 rule set in any video game. I honestly learned a lot of the nuance of 3.5 from playing this game that would have taken me much longer to learn at a table or by reading the books, especially considering how many goddamn books there are for 3.5. So the game itself is really pretty much just standard D&D ripped right from the module. But instead of having a table of players and a DM, it's just you and your PC. The game allows you to control up to 5 adventurers that you can roll yourself or pick from a list of pre-generated characters, and then those characters get an intro vignette that ties your party to the greater story, giving them a reason to visit Hommlet and eventually the Moat House. There are a few vignettes that are better than others, in my opinion. The Lawful Good opening is probably the best because it gives you access to Paladin, which was restricted to Lawful Good only in 3.5. And the opening story starts with a combat encounter, giving you a pretty good head start on XP and loot, which is pretty important in this adventure because this game does not care about you. If you don't build optimally, explore profusely, and get as much XP and good equipment as possible, and get lucky with your dice rolls, the game will end you without a second thought. I actually once lost my entire party in the opening vignette because I had really bad rolls on my part and lucky rolls on the enemies. I was also running just 2 characters, so that might have something to do with it. But ultimately, the game plays just like a D&D game. You get your quests, you fight some battles, get some loot, rest, and repeat. So there are 4 main areas with a couple of side areas that you can adventure in. There's the opening village of Hommlet, the Moat House, the town of Nulb, and the Temple of Elemental Evil. There's also apparently 4 side areas that are tied to a few quests. There's Declo Grove, Emerity Meadows, and Emeritus Run. I didn't know about the 4th one, the Ogre Cave, until I was doing the research for this video. So now I have to play a new game so that I can go find it and see what's there. So the opening town of Hommlet has a lot of quests in it. You can spend a long time here just tracking down everything and trying to complete as many quests as you can before moving on. There's honestly a lot of memorable stuff here. I fully adopted the quest about shady merchants in town running everyone out of business into many of my D&D games because it's such a good, like, self-contained hook that gets you invested in the livelihoods of the townsfolk and gives you a simple plot that can be wrapped up really quickly, and especially in tabletop games, can change the way players interact with the world. It gives the town a sense of realism. There is one series of quests that is beyond frustrating, and it took me a very long time to figure out how to finish because I was playing this game back before I had reliable access to the internet. This section is dense and convoluted, so buckle up, but also if you don't like when people sort of ramble and spew out a bunch of words really quickly, you can skip this section. I'll put a timestamp. I know sometimes I get overwhelmed when people talk very quickly, so if you're like me and you don't want to listen to that, you can just skip. But I would say stick around because the circular quest that you have to go through to finish this is pretty funny. So let me try to break all of this down. So if you have a male paladin with a high enough charisma, you can get a quest hook from one of the daughters of a local farmer named Filikin, and she becomes romantically interested in you. She's actually who gives you the quest to go to Declo Grove, but that's not what we're interested in. So you can actually end up marrying this girl, Melanie, and she will join your party. There's one small problem, though. Melanie can't be married until her older sister, Althea, is married. Althea, I don't know, man. She's interested in the carpenter, Merrick. Well, Merrick can't marry her because they are of different faiths. So you have to talk to the local druid, Jaru, about doing a conversion ceremony for him and his brother so they can join the same faith that Althea is a part of. The problem here is that the Church of St. Cuthbert won't allow Merrick and his brother to convert out of their church without first gaining followers to fill the void. To fix this part, you have to raid one of the bookcases in the church to get a scroll of heal, so you can go to the leather worker and cast heal on his brother as a show of St. Cuthbert's powers. Definitely not just the powers of the spellcaster who made the scroll. Now the church has 2 more followers, so Merrick and his brother can convert to the druid's religion so he can marry Althea, but wait, the farmer is too busy working all the time to marry off Althea, so you have to go talk to his sister-in-law, who suggests setting him up with the widow Matilde. Matilde is interested in Filikin, but she wants to build him a barn as a courtship gift, so you have to go back to Merrick, ask him to build the barn, wait. You have to ask Filikin if he reciprocates Matilde's feelings, but he doesn't know if he's mourned his wife long enough. So you have to go back to the druid and ask if a year is enough time to mourn, and he'll say, yeah, that's cool. So now you have to go back to Filikin, tell him to move on. He's like, yeah, I would, but someone's been stealing my stuff. I don't know where this part comes from. So you have to wait till evening to catch the thief and turn him in, or let him go. That doesn't matter. So now we can have the carpenter build a barn since he's not too sad to work, since he was able to convert and start courting Althea because we healed the one guy's brother so he could join the Church of St. Cuthbert, and now Matilde can use the barn to convince Filikin to marry her since we told him that the priest had said it's time to move on, and we caught the thief that was stealing from him, so now he's happy, so you can finally marry Melanie, the level 1 druid who joins your party, and also you get a +1 holy longsword. And friends, that's only 5 of the 24 quests in this town. There's a whole other gosh danged town in this game with another 12 gosh dang quests in it. we haven't even gotten to either of the actual dungeon areas yet. But that's where we're going next. After you sort of wrap up the initial quest hook that you get from your opening vignette, you'll get sent to the Moat House for a different number of reasons, just ones that are tied to your particular quest line. So off we go to the Moat House. So the Moat House is the first place where you will realize that this game is uninterested in your survival. There are 5 big encounters here that will end you before you can even think if you are not prepared for them. The first is right outside the entrance, where you get ambushed by, I think, about 10 bandits. If you fought the frogs and didn't rest in the tower after killing the giant spider and you walked right into this encounter, you will die. 100%, you're not getting through that. Not to mention the frogs in the entryway are strong enough that, like, if they get a couple of their grapple swallow combos off on you, it's just over. They deal so much damage. So if you haven't really explored Hommlet and gotten enough quest XP to level up to probably at least level 3, if you go there at level 1, the frogs will kill you before you even get to the Moat House. There's another encounter in the entrance of the Moat House dungeon involving several zombies and 2 green slimes. Now, 3.5 zombies were no joke. They have damage resistance and they're immune to critical hits, and they also hit like a truck. Without turn undead or some AoE damage, this is a game-ending encounter for an unprepared party. Then there's the bugbear room. These guys hit so hard, and I believe they have 2 barbarians who will one-shot your characters if you're unlucky. There's also a group of gnolls who can be bribed to leave, but you get much less XP for that, so you're kind of incentivized to fight them. And anyone who's fought Flind in Baldur's Gate 3 knows that gnolls do not play. After you finish that off, you can go through some side rooms. There's a giant crawfish that you can fight who's just kind of there. But beside that, so you get to this final room of the dungeon, and it is full of high-level guards with good armor, good weapons, spell casting, and just multiple ranged attackers that can stop you before you really even get very close. A lot of these encounters you almost have to know about up front before going in to survive the dungeon. Like luring the bugbears into the entry cave so they get funneled is the best strategy for them, but you have to know that they're there to do that. And you'll want to throw an AoE spell into the guard room before walking in so that you can almost level the playing field. And even then, you're kind of not guaranteed to win. But all of this is kind of worth it when you get into the very last room where you find this guy hiding, and you get to beat the absolute brakes off of him. He looks like Lucius Malfoy, but he's named Lareth the Beautiful, a name he definitely didn't give himself. So you can beat him up, or you can talk to him and kind of like join with him, and he'll take you directly to the temple. But if you kill him, like I do because he's annoying, then you can raid his stuff and get a map to Nulb, and then from there eventually to the Temple of Elemental Evil. Side note, if you sell his stuff, you'll get tracked down by an assassin, because, you know, his stuff got put into circulation and somebody saw it, and then they sent an assassin after you. And I think that that's really clever. I never would have thought of something like that if I was building this quest. So that's a fun little fuck you, you wanted some gold, here's an assassin after you. So now we've reached Nulb. It's your stereotypical fantasy pirate town. It's built on a swamp. So all of the buildings are up on stilts over a river, and they're connected by bridges. It's pretty cool design. There's several quests here, including one where you have to track down and kill a legendary giant gar. But what the fisherman doesn't tell you is that along with the giant gar, there's a behemoth king frog and a bunch of lizard men and a hag. And if you mess up, you can end up accidentally aggroing all of them, which will absolutely end your game. This is actually listed as one of the hardest encounters in the game, which is impressive considering you fight actual Zugdmoy, the demon queen of fungi, at the end. Spoiler alert, I guess. So in this town, you can actually get 2 more characters to join you through quests. There's a pirate cabin boy who's in an abusive relationship with the ship's captain. You can get him to join your party and even marry him if you speak to him with a male character. And all you have to do is beat up Captain Nulb, which is, I mean, kind of pays for itself because the guy is insufferable. Then there's Serena, the level 3 rogue who is indebted to a woman named Mona. You can buy Serena's freedom for 500 gold, and then she'll join you. Quick aside that lets you know what kind of topics bothered people when this game came out. Game reviewers freaked out about the optional gay relationship that you can enter into voluntarily after doing a quest, but had no issue with the woman being kept as an intern by a woman referred to with a Romani slur. Interns and racial slurs are fine in my D&D, but God forbid I have the option to go out of my way and choose to enter a gay relationship. You can also buy a house in this town, so you can have a free place to go back and rest, and it's got a few chests in it for your stuff. I'm not sure who justifies the housing prices in Nulb, because this place is 800 gold. Considering the neighborhood and, you know, local attractions, I don't know how they're justifying that price, but, you know, the bubble has to pop at some point, I guess. After doing a few quests here, you can get to the final area of the game, the Temple of Elemental Evil. So this place is huge. There's a massive array of monsters and, like, really challenging combats in here, and a lot of really cool loot. The temple is ultimately divided into sub-temples for the 4 elements who are constantly at war with each other. You can choose to work with one of the temples against the other ones and complete a quest for them, which usually just involves killing the leader of the other temple. But through doing this, you'll gain access to a man named Hedrick. He's the leader of the whole temple. When you speak with Hedrick, you are given 2 choices. You can fight him, or go kill Scorp, the hill giant. The latter sees your party joining the temple, and you actually get a credits roll there. You've finished the game. Choosing the former, fighting and killing Hedrick, gives your party access to the 4 elemental nodes, which grant access to elemental gems, which can be inserted into the Orb of Golden Death. And once you put those in there, you get a very powerful artifact that maybe ties Zugdmoy's spirit to this plane. It's kind of unclear. I haven't read the actual modules, and the game doesn't do a great job of explaining it. So after this, the only room left is the final area of the game. This area feels oddly empty, and the belief is that Troika ran out of time and left the area without really any encounters except for the final boss. I always thought it was super weird when I was playing and I got to this final area and it was just a bunch of empty rooms and then some old lady. From here, there are many different ways to beat this game. The probably easiest ending is talking to the old woman without the character who is holding the Orb of Golden Death and denying the Pillar of Platinum that she offers you. Doing this banishes Zugdmoy for 66 years. You banish a demon queen for just saying no. And the word is no. I'm not really sure how that one works out, but that's a pretty easy way to beat the game. So if you don't destroy the orb, you can engage in the hardest fight in the game. So you talk to the old woman and accept her offer of the Platinum Pillar. This causes her to turn into Zugtmoy at full power. She will summon up to 3 powerful enemies to aid her, which can include a gosh danged Baylor. So, buckle up, friends. This battle is insanely difficult and ultimately gets you the same ending as option 1, with Zugtmoy only being banished for 66 years. If you destroy the Orb of Golden Death, you can fight Zugtmoy in a much weaker state, and you actually permanently kill her, which I guess is the best ending. There's another ending where you speak to the old woman with the character holding the orb. She'll ask you for the orb back. If you refuse, Zugtmoy gets summoned and that character gets a saving throw to not become a thrall. If you accept and give her the orb, you definitely become a thrall and Zugtmoy gets summoned. So you do the fight, but missing a character and having to fight them. So that's a rough ending. Option 5, kind of weird. For this one, you have to have cleared the temple but not gotten the orb. So not really cleared the temple, I guess. You talk to the old lady, she turns into a demon, you kill her, and Zugtmoy is permanently destroyed. So I don't know where the orb falls into this and how it ties her actual demon spirit to the mortal realm. But that's another way to permanently destroy Zugtmoy, the demon queen of fungus. Option 6 is kind of rare, but you can start fighting Zugtmoy, and there's a chance that she'll start a dialogue offering to make a deal where you get her treasure and she allows you to leave. So there's a lot of different final bosses, but as far as like game endings go, there's kind of only like 3 or 4. But the content within this game is so dense, and the replayability is just fantastic. I am a big fan of the 3.5 system. That's what I started playing D&D with. So this game holds quite a special place in my heart just because of, I had just discovered D&D, and then I played this game and I was like, oh my god, so that's how you do this thing, and you can do this in your quests. So it really shaped who I am as a dungeon master. I would suggest playing it. Even if you've never played 3.5, it's not terribly hard to pick up in a video game system. This game is great. There's like so much content in it. You can play it over and over. The character customization leaves a lot to be desired, but that's not important. Just the party makeups and the different ways you can approach things. It's all very dense and very fun. This last part's not scripted. I'm kind of just rambling, so if it seems much less coherent, it's because I'm going off of my thoughts and not my words. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I got a lot of nice comments after the last video, so I hope this one, I hope you enjoy it as well. And I've got a few more in the works. So I've got another unsung soundtracks. I'll probably review a couple other old Lego games, Lego Racers 2, stuff like that. And then some of the old Hot Wheels games. I want to get into those because those were a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. It makes me feel good. And it gives me a little bit of imposter syndrome. So if you want to throw me into a mental panic, just subscribe and comment, and I'll be like, I don't deserve this. So you can torture me through the internet. But I hope you'll come back for the next one. And if you haven't watched the last ones, you could do that too. All right. That's it for this one. So thank you.